Vapors wafting into their homes, endangering their lives. That's what an angry crowd talked about during a community meeting today. KPIX 5 reporter Don Knapp is in Mountain View, where the problem goes back decades. Don.
And it's been unnerving for many who live here, who thought that the toxic chemical TCE had been under control for years, is now moving about in the groundwater beneath their homes and showing up in concentrations that authorities are calling hotspots.
Apologize if I...
The folks who packed this Mountain View neighborhood clubhouse want answers about the risks they're living with. Vapors from trichloroethylene, TCE, that pollutes the groundwater of this part of Silicon Valley. What are the concerns that bring you here? What are you thinking about?
Health. Number one, health. Secondly, property values.
The history goes back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when the emerging tech industry dumped tons of TCE, and it ended up in the groundwater. While that seemed controlled for years, new concerns emerged last year when vapors seeped into buildings owned by Google on Whisman Road. Here's how it happens.
It can potentially evaporate readily from that contaminated groundwater, migrate through the soil, and potentially enter into overlying buildings.
Buildings like the homes of many people who live in areas where long-time monitoring wells show puzzling new levels of concentrations.
Well, the map shows some high concentrations in that area, right? 130,000 parts per billion. That was taken in the groundwater under the street. Now, we've had air testing done on our home a couple times over the years, and it hasn't gotten into the home, which is fortunate.
For those here, the question comes down to just one thing.
And basically everybody interested is what happens to my residents, my neighborhood.
The EPA tested 30 homes and found 2 with higher TCE vapors. Ventilation systems like this one in a home owned by a former engineer at Fairchild were installed.
The system runs all the way through here, and here are the pumps. It extracts all the fumes.
Paid for by the firm now deemed responsible for the pollution. The re-emergence of TCE and vapors at Google has many here worried.
But people are naturally afraid of things that maybe they don't understand as well. So I'm glad that they're trying to get the information out.
The EPA people say they're here for folks, but folks aren't waiting for the EPA. They're getting proactive. They're holding meetings, and they're looking to taking action. Ann?
Don, what is the risk of exposure to TCE?
Apparently, there's a whole long list of them, including heart arrhythmia, muscle issues, central nervous system, bad things for pregnant women. But we're told that you really need to have a lot of exposure over a long period of time. But of course, if you live here, you don't want any exposure over any period of time.
All right, Don Knapp, thank you much.